Good afternoon. I'm Deirdre McAleer, Business Banking Market Executive for Bank of America. Bank of America is proud to be the presenting sponsor of Philadelphia Magazine's Secrets from the C-Suite Entrepreneur Edition. At Bank of America, we are dedicated to bringing talented women to our company, investing in their career growth, and providing a range of supportive benefits while also supporting economic empowerment of women in communities around the world. I'm honored to be sharing the virtual stage with such amazing women leaders in our community. As a lifelong resident of Philadelphia, I realize how important entrepreneurs and small businesses are to our regional economy. We at Bank of America know how important it is to support women business owners as they juggle their work and home responsibilities. With women owning 33% of businesses worldwide, we play a significant part in advancing both our local and global economy. In addition to investing in women, we are delivering on a $1.25 billion commitment over 5 years to advance racial equality and economic opportunity, recently expanded from our initial $1 billion 4-year commitment. This effort further accelerates work already underway to create opportunities for people and communities of color through direct action investments and work to catalyze similar efforts across the private sector. This includes financing, philanthropy, and how we manage our own activities focused on job workforce development, affordable housing, health, and small businesses. I'm happy to introduce you to Philadelphia Magazine's Kate Daly. We hope you enjoy the program, and thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I am Kate Daly, editor of Philadelphia Magazine. I want to thank our sponsor, Bank of America, and welcome all of you to Secrets from the C-Suite. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking to some fantastic local entrepreneurs who have made really interesting and brave pivots in their career. I'm excited to hear about what they're doing now, how they got there, and what advice they have for the rest of us who might be thinking about what our lives are going to look like in this post-COVID world. So I'm going to ask all of the speakers to introduce themselves, to tell us a little bit about what they're doing now, what they did in the past, and then we will get into the conversation. So we'll start with Abby Newman, who is currently the CEO of Mission Kids Child Advocacy Center.
Hi, Kate. Thanks so much for having me here today, and to Adeline and Tina to be here as well. I am the CEO, as Kate just said, of Mission Kids Child Advocacy Center. We're a nonprofit located in Montgomery County, and we coordinate responses to reports of child abuse in Montgomery County, and also do national and international education and outreach to change the responses to victims of child abuse in Pennsylvania, across the country, and across the world. My history is that I started out my career as a pediatric registered nurse, and then I went to law school. I practiced as a medical malpractice attorney, a defense attorney in Philadelphia for about 18 years. And that's when I pivoted into the nonprofit world and became the founding executive director of Mission Kids, and now CEO. So that's my background.
That's wonderful. Our next panelist is Tina Dixon Spence. She is the founder of Buddha Babe, a boutique baby business that has a Mount Airy storefront and a big online presence. So Tina, please say hi and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got here.
Hi, Kate. It is amazing to be here. Thank you for having me, and hello to Abby and Adelaide as well. My name is Tina, as you said, and I am the owner and CEO of Buddha Babe, which is a luxury baby children's clothing and accessory brands that I started online in 2014. And just last year, in the middle of the pandemic, decided to launch a brick and mortar location that serves as not just a retail frontage, but also as a production studio, as well as a workshop. Prior to launching the brick and mortar, I was operating Buddha Babe through various iterations in my basement, at several studios around the city, but always kept my full-time position as an executive assistant. And for 20 years, I was served as the executive assistant to the CEO or executive directors of both nonprofit as well as Fortune 500 companies. And in June of last year, I decided to cut the cord completely and take Buddha Babe into new directions and focus on scaling the business. And obviously, opening the brick and mortar was the culmination of that plan. And now we are completely on a new trajectory.
That's excellent. I'm also really excited to hear more about that and how you made that switch. And then finally, our last panelist is Adeline Coe. She's the founder and CEO of Sabbatical Beauty.
Thank you, Kate, for having me. And hi to Tina and Abby as well. Glad to be here with you guys. So my story is that I'm originally from Singapore. I came to the United States to do my PhD at the University of Michigan, and I actually was first an English professor. So I arrived in Philadelphia because I was an English professor at Stockton University in New Jersey for about 6 years. I did not like being an academic, and I was really into Korean skincare. I had grown up in Singapore, so a lot of the ingredients that are in Korean beauty, like ginseng, for example, were very familiar to me as things that my parents would give to me in soups and stuff to feel better when I was ill. So a lot of these ingredients really spoke to me, and I started using Korean skincare as a professor around 2015. And what happened was that my skin got better, but it didn't get 100% better. And when I started doing more research, I realized that for a lot of these products, if you look at the ingredient list, say something that is a ginseng serum would actually have ginseng at the very bottom of the ingredient list, meaning there won't be very much ginseng in it at all. And so I decided the only way to really test it, if something like ginseng would work on my skin, would be to really make the product myself. So I went on sabbatical as a professor, and instead of writing my book, I started experimenting with cosmetic chemistry. I started making my own skincare products. So my skin got a lot better. And then my other professor friends were like, hey, make skincare for us too. And then their skin got a lot better. And then they told me to make an online shop. I made an online shop, and then we got a ton of national press that first year. I made 6 figures that first year. And I was like, oh, maybe I can leave this job that I really don't like. And so I left the next year in 2017 to run Sabbatical Beauty full time. And that's my story. We handcraft everything in our little studio in the Bach building in South Philly by ourselves.
What I think is really interesting about all of your stories is that it wasn't as though, as entrepreneurs, you were, for instance, working at a Fortune 500 insurance company and then said, I'm going to start my own insurance business. It wasn't a sort of natural leap. You guys made some really big jumps and made some big changes. And I'm wondering, and Abby, we'll start with you first. I'm wondering if you can tell me what was the moment or what was the sort of precipitating incident that made you realize that you wanted to take this leap?
So being an attorney, especially one that did a lot of courtroom work in Philadelphia, is very stressful. For the first few years that I did it, I'll say it was exciting. I learned a lot. I came along, but I found that I wasn't getting as much job satisfaction from it that I really hoped that I was going to get. While I was there, I did this for 18 years. During that time, I had 3 daughters. I was watching them grow up. I wanted to spend more time with them, but we're all pulled in different directions by careers and family, and how do you balance that? And that wasn't as much of an issue, but one of the senior women partners, in fact, the first woman partner at this law firm, was about 5 years older than me. And she suddenly became very ill. And she also had 3 children. And in that regard, I was able to really relate to her. And she needed to stop working. And very unfortunately, she passed away at a young age. And that really precipitated me into thinking, you know what? If I'm not getting the satisfaction that I really want out of this career, then what do I want to do? And I realized that I wanted to go back closer to being more direct, hands-on with people as I had been when I was a nurse, but somehow wanted to combine the things that I was doing. And the opportunity came my way I wanted to go into nonprofit work. Somebody heard about it, knew me, who knew my background, and said, gee, I'm thinking about starting this nonprofit, and I know your background. Would you be interested in kind of like taking this leap and making this big change? And I said, absolutely. So that's how I got to where I am, well, at least at Mission Kids.
Tina, I think your story will resonate with a lot of our audience because Buddha Babe was, for all intents and purposes, for a while, kind of a side hustle. It was a creative project that you worked on the side while you had your 9-to-5 with the benefits, with the 401k. And so what convinced you to take that leap, to go from something you sort of did on the side to try and supplement what you were doing or fulfill that creative itch to your entire career? How did you make that leap?
So the leap actually happened gradually. I think that as the business organically grew larger and larger over the years, I mean, I started it while I was on maternity leave back in 2014, and I never had any idea of growing a business. I literally was self-taught with sewing, and everything that I knew about business, apparently I learned through osmosis from supporting CEOs. So I have no formal training in either, fashion design or business. So everything was just kind of like a trial and error process. But what happened is by 2016, I found that my side hustle was taking more of my time and energy out of my day than my main job. And I did have one, former boss that joked around and said, listen, you're paying too much attention to your business and not enough to mine. And that was kind of, a light switch moment when it was like, okay, well, maybe I do need to start taking this seriously. And had it not been for being, remanded to work from home and feeling that pull to, go down into my basement studio and get my creative outlet going, I would probably still be doing the 9 to 5, but because we were sent home, as soon as the pandemic started, I feel like that was just my trigger to just say, you know what, let's just step away from the 9 to 5. We don't know what life is going to look like for the next 6 months, 18 months. And let's just give this your full attention and see what happens. And I'm glad that I did it because it really was a clarifying moment. Scary, but it was just the right combination of circumstances where I was, my commute had been eliminated, childcare issues had been eliminated, everything that I loved and held dear was just right there with me. And I said, you know what, this is the kind of quality of life that I want to continue. What can I do, or what do I need to do to make this it?
Adam, when you were on your sabbatical, did you have a similar journey where you thought, okay, this will maybe be a side hustle, or this is something that I'm doing gradually? And was there a moment where you thought, okay, I can, as Tina said, make this it?
So I think that my aha moment came at there were two separate impulses for it. So the first one was, as I said, I was very unhappy being a professor, and I started developing and started using these Korean beauty products actually to try to heal myself from a lot of the toxic, traumatizing experiences that I had as a professor. My husband remembers, like, I would come back from a conference where with all these people fighting, being totally destroyed, and I would try to build myself up by taking a long bath and then using basically 10 million skincare products on my face. And that made me feel a lot better. And so I had my aha moment because I did want to leave and it was a business that was doing well, but also because I had basically built this business of trying to care for myself and make myself feel better that I then brought into creating a brand. So Sabbatical Beauty for me is really not so much about asking women to buy products because they're not good enough, but asking women to buy products to make them feel better about themselves, to care for themselves. So I would say there were 2 points. One point was that I really did not like the other point was that I was creating something that really helped me to heal and feel whole. And I wanted to bring that to other people to help them to heal and feel whole again.
Abby, you mentioned that you had wanted to go back in some senses to your roots, to helping children, to helping people the way you did when you were a nurse. And I'm wondering when you made this pivot from, nurse to attorney to running a nonprofit, what skills did you bring with you, and what did you really have to learn for the first time on the job?
So I guess the first pivot rather, from being a nurse to an attorney, that was probably the harder pivot, because as a nurse, you do a lot of things. You have independent judgment, but still based on orders from physicians that you do. And it's a lot of really interpersonal one-on-ones with your patients. And that job dissatisfaction came from not having enough of that personal time. The pivot to being an attorney is, I'm on my own. I'm making all of these judgments. It's very fast. Nobody's telling me what to do, but there's the interpersonal connection. That part is almost least in the practice I was doing, almost non-existent.
Mhm.
So then that last pivot to running the nonprofit, it really brought them both back together because I was the founding executive director, clearly having an impact on how this organization developed and grew. But that interpersonal connection was there. Not even, I don't do the direct services with the children. There's some really wonderful people that do that. But the connections that I was making with police officers and prosecutors and social workers and medical providers, all of whom come together to wrap around these kids, those interpersonal connections were really terrific. And I think what I'd really been missing a lot of in the legal job that I was doing as a lawyer.
Tina, what did you bring with you from your work? Obviously, if you're being an executive assistant, you have to be very detail oriented. You have to be on top of a million different projects at once and have that project management experience. So what did you bring with you and what did you have to learn new in your new career?
So I would say that that's about all I brought was the project management, the attention to detail, just kind of knowing how to organize my thoughts and organize my day or my planning. But what I had to learn was obviously the technical skills of actually sewing. I had to learn about branding. I had to learn about social media. I had to learn a little bit of accounting and bookkeeping. I had to learn all those things. But what I was able to pull from, where I say I learned a lot of these things through osmosis, was I can remember being in the room when conversations were being had with the marketing department, when a particular, the company was going through a branding change and, pulling the colors and the fonts and creating a new logo. So I've been fortunate to be in several different types of environments across a number of industries. And being the EA to a CEO, obviously you are sitting in the meetings where all of the top line decisions are being made. And you hear the conversations and you may not be paying attention other than to keep notes or minutes, but it kind of, sinks in the back of your head. And I just had this really great, block of information to pull from. And then I also knew exactly who I needed to reach out to get more information, further support.
Adeline, it sounds like your pivot was really kind of a reaction, like the opposite of your job. Like you would do your job and then as a source of relief would work on the skincare. But was there anything that you took with you from your first iteration of your career? And if not, how did you learn all those things you needed to know? I mean, you were a professor, but you were not a chemistry professor. You were an
Right. I mean, I think what I fundamentally gained from my job and my training was how to do research, how to conduct research, and how to read a lot of things very quickly, read and compress a lot of ideas, and to be able to act on them very quickly. And so I am happy that I did do my PhD because that did train me to learn a lot of things very quickly, which I think every small business owner would feel like that is something that's requested of them. You have to learn everything really fast, whether you like it or not.
Abby, did you have any moments of doubt when you were thinking about making this change? And then conversely, was there a moment once you were in the job where you thought, yes, this is exactly why I'm doing what I want to do?
Oh, both. Absolutely. The one thing about being a partner in a law firm is that it's really secure. You know what I mean? It's for all the goods and the bads and the stress, it's secure. And I know I'm going to make very reasonable salary and that's okay. So leaving that to go into the world of nonprofits, which is an entirely different world, was scary. I knew that I had to kind of re-educate myself in a lot of different areas. Somebody just brought up, I think it was Tina just now, the branding and the marketing. I had no idea that I would need to learn that. But yeah, I think pretty quickly as things started to come together and all the pieces started falling into place, and I was seeing the growth of this organization and this agency, which hadn't been there before. There's so much satisfaction there. And then using those new tools and skills with what I brought with it, now watching it go from being a local Montgomery County nonprofit to then being statewide, national, and getting calls internationally to help other countries and areas respond to child abuse, yeah, it's a great fit. And it's something that it all fell into place very much better than frankly I ever anticipated.
Right.
So.
Tina, was there a moment for you where you thought, okay, yes, this is going to work. This is meant to be, or maybe not even meant to be, but this is the hard work that I put into this is paying off, and my vision is being executed.
There was a moment, I would say opening day of the brick and mortar, and to see the community just really come out in full force. And my online customers who have been with me since 2014 and now are on their, the third or fourth child, and to have those children now come in and, be carrying a blanket that I made for them 3 or 4 years ago. It was such a source of pride and just a real reinforcement to let me know that I am making a difference in people's lives, even if it's in a very frivolous way. But, any parent will tell you there's nothing frivolous about a blankie, especially when blankie gets lost. It's a scene. So that was, I think, the moment. It was the payoff. It was, okay, you did the right thing. It's scary. These are unprecedented times, and there really should be no expectation. But what I got from opening day really solidified for me that we were onto something great, and we have all of the assets, and now we just need for continued growth and continued, support, and for the world to get back to normal.
Adeline, you mentioned that, soon after you opened, you did, I think you mentioned 6 figures that first year, and it felt like a real success and a real sign that you were on the right path. Was it just smooth sailing from there, or were there challenges after that?
Oh, there are definitely challenges throughout. I would say that we've generally been pretty successful. I've managed to stay on 6 figures since I started, but we've definitely had some dips. Interestingly enough, I actually did 20% better last year during COVID than my previous year in 2019. And I think that a lot of it speaks to what I'm most proud of with my brand. My aha moments is really that the community that I created around my brand. I've only actually really started, building a Philadelphia community in 2019 when I moved to the Bach building. Before that, many of my customers were either national customers or even international customers. And my aha moment was when we actually moved to the Bach building and I opened up a brick and mortar retail section of my studio, which I never had before. And I had customers coming in from all over the States to just attend the brick and mortar. And they was just such lovely people to get to know. And I had actually, that was my first time getting covered by Philly Mag, by you guys, and you sent Sierra, your reporter at the time, to come visit, and she was like, I just fell in love with your brand because of all of the beauty of the sabbatical beauty people that came, because they were just lovely. They just wanted to support and care for one another, which is really rare to find in a beauty brand. And so for me, that was the aha moment, that my self-care community had, really gone beyond my initial idea. And that it was viable, and that it was a good thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Tina mentioned that being at home with the pandemic allowed her to sort of take the leap and to have a little bit more time to think, and you're seeing it benefit your company, especially if people are home, they want to do something that feels indulgent. I imagine, Abby, it must be a very different story when it comes to the work that you do. And the pandemic must have brought out a lot of problems, maybe ones that you could have anticipated, but maybe at scale. And I'm wondering how this past year changed the work that you did, or what was.
Well, I hear your question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The thing with child abuse is that the main reporters for it are often teachers and people that are with children outside of the home. So now you have the pandemic, kids are out of school, they're locked in their homes. 50% of the time, the abuser is a family member. And so, especially, there is often now more stress in the home. People were out of work, they were not allowed to leave. Even those that continued to work, I'm sure that we all felt it, working remotely has its own set of stresses. You're locked in your house and everybody misses that social interaction and being out. So stresses rise in the home. The problem is that the reports of abuse declined at one point by up to 50%, or over the course of 2020, I think it was overall a 20% drop in the number of cases. And that's not because there was less abuse, it was because there were less reports because kids were not outside. As we're now starting to come back out and as we were able to get the word out, we made a partnership with the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania about coming up with an app that kids could use to help report for other children, for their own friends, if they were keeping in touch with them. It's called Safe to Say. The community was very supportive. And now as we're getting out of the pandemic, we are noticing that we're getting, I hate to say back to the level, but it's good because then we can help these kids once the reports come in. And what we did find is that it's not just limited to Pennsylvania or Montgomery County, but throughout the country and actually throughout the world, everybody in this industry saw the same things. So hopefully we can all get back out there now. The reports will come back in and we can keep doing what we need to do.
Yeah, hopefully. Tina, when we spoke yesterday, it sounds like you, this was not an endeavor you took on lightly. You have planned, you have been working, you have really thought through all of this in making your leap. I'm wondering though, what were some of the main obstacles that you had to push through when it comes to sort of opening your own business? What are the obstacles that are in place? Is it something like health insurance and benefits? Is it getting startup financing, you know, for people who are watching this and want to start their own business, or for people who are watching and want to encourage small businesses? What are the main obstacles that we need to work on if we want to see more entrepreneurs?
So obviously finances is always the number one top issue. I think that a lot of times fast financing seems great, but that can get you into a position where you now have all the assets, but you need the traffic and the sales to sustain, right? And without the traffic and the sales sustaining, then you run into labor cost issues where, you know, you've had fast funding and you hire a full suite of staff, and then you find that you don't have the orders to sustain their labor costs. And with me coming from just a sheer production and having a bunch of freelance sewists working their own side hustles, to bring them into this production space that's now, you know, we're all in here working together and we're all creating products that we want to be sold both online and in store. I also have my staff doubling as retail associates. So if there's not enough orders to support the making aspect and there's no store traffic coming in, then it's like a double whammy. I have this very, you know, fairly paid staff that's just sitting around waiting for something to do. Fortunately, that hasn't been an issue, but I did have to shrink staff a few months ago because I saw things going in that direction. Obviously, there was the big bubble that was, we started making masks, and I had, 8 people on staff all making masks, and we still couldn't keep up. But then once that demand started to decline, I had to let half of that staff go, and I was able to retain the other half and bring them into this space. So I think that's the number one thing. Like, someone's always willing to invest in a great idea and, give you fast funding to start things up. But what's really driving issues now is, the marketability of your products, the product placement, the sales channels, trying to grow, expand the footprint beyond this wonderful local community, and being able to capitalize and convert traffic. So these are all like big, giant, like SEO is like a big thing for me right now, and just trying to figure out how to monetize the interest that's generated from, all of the publications and all the press and all the mentions. But, you always get a spike in web traffic, but, the conversions aren't necessarily there. So that's been a huge, huge factor thus far.
Adeline, I saw you nodding along a lot when Tina was speaking. Did that sound similar to your experience?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that when you're a business owner, there are all these moving parts, right? What if you invest in having stock and employees there and nobody actually buys anything? Like, I've had press features. I had an article, a really nice article interview with me come out in Bust magazine, just a feminist magazine, and very much in line with my brand identity, which one would think would have generated a lot of sales. And I think we got 2 sales out of that. Lots of web traffic, but like 2 sales, right? So it's like how you it's just very anxiety inducing. Like where are you putting your resources in the right place at the right time? Or are you going into debt for no reason to do that? So yeah, she's right. It's really, really hard.
Yeah. Abby, obviously there are different concerns with the nonprofit, but what are some of the, if people are thinking, and I think people are right now thinking a lot about what they want from work and wanting to have more meaning, whether it's launching their own business that they're connected with or doing more work in the nonprofit space, what are some of the big obstacles or the big things people need to get in place in order to launch a nonprofit?
I would recommend education. I did, before coming to Mission Kids, after I left the law firm, I spent a year volunteering at a very small startup nonprofit that's actually no longer in existence. But there I learned how to do grant writing. I learned why a nonprofit is different from a for-profit business and certainly from being a lawyer in the legal field. And so you need to go out and educate yourself. I took classes on nonprofit work and how it's different. And you need to understand, but if you follow your passion, then you can do it. You need to also obviously take your own financial situation into concern. Working in the nonprofit area is not as profitable as working in a for-profit organization. It's just not. But that's okay. If you have to balance, as always, your quality of life, where you see yourself, and what makes you fulfilled. So that would be my advice. But if you want to do it, educate yourself, follow your passion, and follow your instincts and do it. Don't let fear hold you back from anything.
Yeah. Tina, what advice do you have for anybody who is thinking about maybe taking their side job, their side hustle, and making it their primary career?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to give that advice because my personal motto has always been jump first and ask for the parachute later, which I think that most business-minded people would never, ever, ever say, don't just go out and start a business without even having a business plan, which is what I did. And that's just the very nature. I mean, I started this thing when my son was drooling and I didn't like what the fashion choices were in the stores at the time. I had no plans on doing any of this. So it's just been one, experiment after the other that has just funneled into a legit business. So I really feel like if you are a true entrepreneur or if you're a serial entrepreneur and you have these business plans and you have, all of your ducks in a row and you've got your trademarks and your copyrights and all that, I did none of that. I back-ended into all of this. So what I would say is if you're a creative and you have aspirations of launching a business, don't overthink it. It can be done by just doing it. And then all the other chips fall where they may, because you can go and invest in all of the startup costs of, hiring an attorney and filling out all the forms and doing all the business registrations. And then 6 months in, you have no proof of concept. So I would say, make sure somebody wants what you're trying to sell or offer first. Go with that for a little while, tag on to an Etsy site or something that has a low cost, a low entry point, and is very minimal risk, and try that out for a few to see how it goes, And then if you find that people really are into it, then you start to take it a little bit more seriously and you grow with it. Don't try to have everything so cookie cutter and perfect before you even make your first sale.
Yeah. How about you, Adeline? What is your advice to people who want to make a pivot, become an entrepreneur, launch their own?
I think it's first thing, I agree completely with Tina. I was just like her. I had no business plan. I still rarely have a business plan. But I agree with her in a sense that really try to make a proof of concept with as little money and resources as possible, just to see whether people actually want what you have to sell. Also, if you want to go into something like starting your own business, you have to find something that you're really passionate about selling, because nobody can do the job that you can do in selling your product. Nobody can sell your product for you like you can. So find something that you really love, that you feel brings value to other people. And also the other thing, and especially because we're all women on this panel, is make sure that you price your products high enough that you can pay yourself okay and you can pay other people okay as well. Because I see for a lot of women entrepreneurs, we're often taught to devalue our own worth and our labor and the labor of other women, which is why you see handcrafted businesses selling products for basically China-made factory prices on Etsy because they think that's how they have to compete. That's not how you have to compete, and that's not going to bring you the quality of life that you actually want for you and for your employees. So always think about pricing yourself what you truly deserve and what people will value about you. So make sure to not undervalue yourself, find something that you're really passionate about selling. And like Tina said, try to do a proof of concept with as little resources as possible, just to make sure that people actually want what you have to sell.
Abby, I see you nodding along with that. Obviously, you are not selling a product, but
No.
you are fundraising. You are, doing a lot of work that requires putting a lot of value on your work. And so, how does that sort of lesson about valuing ourselves as women, valuing the work that we do, how does that translate to the nonprofit sphere?
I was really relating to what Adeline was saying about be passionate because nobody can sell it like you can. So it's my responsibility. We never charge for our services to the children and the families that we provide for, yet we want to provide, and we do provide, I think, the highest quality services that a child in this situation can get. So it's my job to be the face of the organization and go out and sell what it is that we do and the help that we provide. And if I were not passionate about, so sorry, see, my dogs are passionate too. If I were not as passionate about advocating on behalf of these kids and the services that we can provide, it wouldn't work as well. And I do believe that that translates to my staff and everybody that works at Mission Kids in being able to go out and advocate and sell and ask for funds and ask for money, and not to be afraid to say, can you donate X thousands of dollars, especially now during a pandemic when we can't have our live gala event? Will you support us? And not be afraid to ask for that amount, because we're women and we've been taught, oh yes, we're supposed to provide this for free. Social service agencies are mainly made up of women who are not paid enough money, I think often because they're women and we're devalued and we're just supposed to give it away, aren't we? Sorry, that might have come out a little wrong, but I think you got what I meant. So sorry, there's that passion, just you hit the nail on the head.
I love it. No, and I think it's so important. And it brings me to another thing I want to discuss, which is this idea that, especially if you are leaving to start your own organization, you are the boss, you are maybe the person who empties the trash, you are doing a lot of work all the time. So what do you do? And Tina, maybe you can talk about this. How do you handle this when you are the boss? You are the person who you want to value your work, you want to sell yourself, sell your work, but you need a pep talk, or you need, you're having a bad day and it's all falling on your shoulders. How do you handle that? And what advice do you have for people? Maybe that's something holding them back, saying, I have a great idea. I have something I'm passionate about, but I don't know if I can do it on my own. What do you do in those moments where you feel like you need a reminder of what your worth is?
I absolutely turn to my social media following. Part of my branding has been about sharing my growth as an entrepreneur, my journey as a mother, and being very transparent. I feel like other moms who are my customers really do connect with me on a personal level. And it's gotten to a point where the business is at a point where I need to kind of separate them. But that's what they have come to know and love. And that's what they support and shop Buddha Babe. That's the reason. So I keep it real with them. And when I'm having a really, really hard time, whether it's in business or in my personal life, I just talk about it on social media. And, I get off of my salesy platform and I have this mom to mom discussion. And I always get the encouragement, the support, the feedback that I need in that way. Because sometimes you can't get it from an advisor. You can't get it from someone in your home. You can't get it from a friend or a family member because they don't necessarily understand what it is you're going through. And maybe they can't answer the questions. And my customers can't answer the questions or solve the problems either, but at least they remind me of what I'm doing it for. and who I'm doing it for. So that's kind of actually one of my challenges currently. Like, how do I get Tina out of the brand as much and let the brand sell itself? It's a push and pull. I mean, I can't even outsource social media or marketing because it's my voice. And the minute I bring in an intern or hire an agency, the minute they post one thing and I'm like, no, that's not how I would say that. And so it's tough. It's like, giving your baby away, but that's what I've found to be very, very helpful and effective, because it really does keep people drawn closer to you.
Adeline, how do you remind yourself of your worth? How do you handle days when you wish you could go to your boss and say, tell me I'm doing a good job, except you're the boss?
So that's a really good question. And I would say what I do is to hide from everybody in my bed and put on all my beauty products. I am an introvert, so I need a lot of space to build myself up from dealing with people. So what I really do is to withdraw. I withdraw from the world for a while, and I really give myself the space to feel my feelings, the feelings of overwhelm, the feelings of inadequacy, of imposter syndrome, all those feelings. And when I allow myself to feel those feelings and understand that my feelings are valid, usually after I give myself that time and the space, I feel better and I'm better able to talk about it in a more productive way. And that's usually when I start making social media posts about it and TikToks about it, because now TikTok's a big thing for me. And usually then I come up with material that my audience has a lot more resonance for, because they can see, they can identify, they can relate to what I'm saying, but without the kind of raw emotional anger that I probably am feeling to begin with. So I would say first, I give myself grace and I let myself feel what I need to feel. Then I let my process. And once I am able to process, I talk about it and try to make it a teachable moment for my audience, which then makes my audience feel closer to me as well.
Great. And then Abby, let's give you the last word on this. I mean, as a manager, as someone leading a team, how do you deal with those moments where you think, what am I doing? I'm a nurse / lawyer, how do you find confidence, find leadership when you are still figuring things out or feeling unconfident?
I just go back. I hate to say this too. First, I kind of go inwards a little bit. I think like what Adeline is saying. Over this year in COVID, being in the house a lot, I've started doing a lot of yoga, which I find is very helpful. And then I just kind of sit and breathe, think about what it is that's bothering me, identify it, and then try, okay, what am I going to do? And then I just follow my instincts. And I have no better way to put it. I used to tell my kids, when they were in first grade, follow your tummy. What is your tummy telling you? And I just identify it and I just follow it. And I do have to say, I also related, Tina, when you said jump and then ask for the parachute later. That's kind of my motto. So I'm going to borrow that line if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Sharing and supporting, I think that's a good takeaway from this. So that about wraps it up. I want to thank again our sponsor, Bank of America. Before we go, I'm just going to ask each of you once more, tell us who you are, tell us what you do, and then tell us where we can find you on social. If we want to learn more about your charity, if you want to learn more about your products, if we want to put a little heart on your picture when you're having a bad day. Yeah. Tina, do you want to start? Tell us your name, tell us your company, and tell us where we can find you on social.
All right. So it's Tina Dixon Spence from Buddha Babe. And my handle for Instagram is @mybuddhababe.
Adeline, how about you?
So I'm Adeline Ko and my company is Sabbatical Beauty, and you can find us at Sabbatical Beauty on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and on Pinterest.
Great. And then Abby, if people want to find out more about the work that you're doing and how to help the kids that you support, where should they go?
Thank you. I'm Abby Newman, and it's Mission Kids Child Advocacy Center, www.missionkidcac.org, and also Facebook and Instagram. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for being with us. It was so great to hear from 3 great leaders doing really interesting work across the city. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. This was my first time hosting. It was a lot of fun. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to just smart, interesting people, specifically smart, interesting women doing great stuff in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you to my guests and thank you to everyone who tuned in.